Hey guys, tonight we're prying open the creaky doors of Victorian homes to reveal something most history documentaries would rather sweep under a very suspicious rug. Secret rooms for women. That's right, hidden parlours, concealed boudoirs, and what can only be described as the 19th century equivalent of the Do Not Disturb sign, but with more wallpaper and fewer working light bulbs. You might think of the Victorian era as a time of tea, crumpets, and people fainting over chair legs. But beneath the surface of those starched collars and moral panics, every respectable home was playing an architectural version of hide and seek, with extra points if no man in the house ever found the embroidery stash or the emergency chocolate. Tonight, we're not just dusting off history, we're hunting for the blueprints to the original she-sheds, the hidden spaces where women survived, thrived, and occasionally plotted escape routes involving bonnets and questionable poetry. Before you slip into your own not-so-secret room, take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these absurd journeys through the dustiest corners of history. Drop a comment letting me know which room you're hiding in right now and, as always, what time it is for you. I suspect it can't sleep. Too many Victorian ghosts o'clock for most of us. Now, dim those lights, flip on your fan for that soothing background hum, and get comfortable. Maybe lock your door for extra effect, just in case a nosy Victorian uncle tries to barge in. But let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what actually happened in those secret rooms? Were they filled with forbidden novels and even more forbidden knitting circles? Did Victorian women have entire wardrobes dedicated to their 47 daily outfit changes? What was the deal with rest cures, and was anyone ever truly hysterical, or just extremely tired of being patted on the head by men named Reginald? Did secret rooms double as makeshift speakeasies, gossip headquarters, or the original quiet quitting zones? Could you survive a day in a corset, sneaking sips of laudanum and hiding your half-eaten scones from the maid? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in 1883 in a respectable townhouse on a street with more gas lamps than sense. You have secrets in your pockets, secrets in the walls, and an entire afternoon blocked out for rest, which is Victorian for not dealing with anybody's nonsense, thank you very much. Welcome to the hidden world of secret rooms for women. Good luck. You stir awake beneath layers of starched linen and suffocating bedspreads, blinking into the foggy winter gloom. Servants pad quietly through hallways, and somewhere in the wainscoting a hidden door clicks shut. Your first challenge: get out of bed without fainting from a tight corset, or tripping over an embroidered nightgown longer than most relationships. Let's set the scene. You're lying in a bed big enough to host a séance, entombed in covers that smell faintly of lavender and more strongly of camphor, which is Victorian for please, no more moths. It's the cold season, which in Victorian England means it's always the cold season, and your nose is the only part of you brave enough to peek out. You're not alone either. In the shadows, a maid waits for her cue. She's mastered the art of materializing at your bedside, exactly when you start considering the existential risk of touching your bare feet to the freezing floor. And yet, before your toes can even contemplate their fate, a symphony of small noises fills the house. There's the dull thump of coal being shoveled into the downstairs fireplace, the gentle clink of teacups on trays, and the distant, unmistakable sound of someone somewhere having a minor breakdown over a misaligned antimacassar. This is morning in the Victorian world. Organised chaos, dressed up in doilies. Before you can truly rise, you face the great Victorian dilemma: to ring the bell for your maid or to attempt a solo escape from the linen labyrinth. You weigh your options. Option 1, dignity, in the form of professional assistance and possibly hot water. Option 2, adventure, which involves wrestling yourself upright, unravelling your hairnet from the bedpost, and launching yourself toward the chamber screen with all the grace of a startled goose. Assuming you survive the journey, you're immediately reminded of your second mortal enemy, the mourning corset. It's waiting for you, limp and malevolent, on a nearby chair. If you're lucky, your maid is skilled at tightening it to breathable but stylish. If you're not, you may be the first Victorian casualty of what historians politely call tight lacing, and what you call early onset suffocation. You exhale, brace yourself, and the laces pull. At this moment the air feels thicker, your spine a bit straighter, and your breakfast prospects increasingly theoretical. But it's not just corsets plotting against you this morning. It's the endless, inescapable ritual of dressing. Chemise, stays, petticoats, stockings, garters, underskirt, overskirt, bodice, and, if you're feeling bold, a wrapper to protect the rest from stray fireplace ash or your own existential dread. Somewhere in this process, someone knocks softly on the door to remind you that you're already late for something. You consider faking an illness, but you used mysterious fainting last Thursday. While you arm yourself with layers of cotton, wool, and frustration, you catch a glimpse of your reflection. There you are, cheeks rosy from the cold, hair a tangle of pins and ambition, eyes betraying the truth that you got maybe 4 hours of sleep, haunted by the ghost of last night's serial novel. But outside this room, you'll present perfection, thanks to secret rooms, secret routines, and secret daydreams about trousers. Finally, it's time to make your entrance. You steel yourself, turn the doorknob, and step out into a world of high expectations, low temperatures, and the constant threat of unsolicited callers. As you descend the stairs, careful not to trip over the hem of your dignity, you pass portraits of relatives who look equally unimpressed by the morning. A servant offers tea. You accept, knowing it's the closest you'll get to warmth for hours. By the time you reach the breakfast room, you're 10 layers deep in fabric, 3 minutes behind schedule, and already plotting your first escape to the secret reading room. But at least you survived the mysterious morning routine, one tight-laced breath at a time, and so begins your day. In a world that expects poise, you've mastered the art of silent rebellion, a flash of wit at the mirror, an extra lump of sugar in your tea, a subtle, defiant wrinkle in the bedspread. The morning routine may be mysterious, but you are the real enigma, awake, dressed, and somehow still standing. In the privacy of your dressing closet, a space only marginally larger than a coffin, you wage a silent war with bone, lace, and elastic that is definitely not elastic. Victorian undergarments require secret knowledge and stronger wrists than most gym memberships. Let's be honest, calling this a closet is optimistic. It's a glorified cupboard where every available inch is claimed by an invading army of petticoats, ribbons, and what may or may not be a small pet mouse living in the hem of your least favourite skirt. The air is heavy with lavender sachets, mothballs, and the nervous sweat of women everywhere who know that a single button mishap could mean social ruin, or at the very least a stern lecture from Aunt Judith. You stand before your first adversary, the chemise. It looks innocent, soft, white, and comforting. But do not be deceived. The chemise is merely the base layer, the appetizer before a 12-course meal of fashion torment. You slip it over your head, already plotting your escape. Next comes the drawers, which are really just 2 separate legs connected only by mutual confusion and the need for modesty, which ironically they fail at completely. Then, the main event, the corset. It stares at you from its hook, all boned channels and laces daring you to try. You wrap it around yourself and attempt to fasten the front busk, essentially tiny hooks that exist solely to test your patience and finger dexterity. Some days you feel like a locksmith. Other days you're convinced the corset has developed a sense of humour and is tightening itself. If you're lucky, there's a maid nearby to help, but let's assume it's just you and your fading optimism. You thread the laces through their endless maze, pulling tighter, then tighter still. The goal, apparently, is to squeeze your waist into the circumference of a decorative bread plate. The sensation is like being hugged by an over-enthusiastic Victorian python. Your ribs complain, your lungs downsize, and you swear you can feel tomorrow's lunch being compressed into next week. With every tug of the laces you remember the stories. Some women fainted, others took to the chaise, and a few got so good at passing out they could do it on command at dinner parties. You wonder if you should add this to your own repertoire. But the corset is only the beginning. Over this marvel of engineering you begin adding layers: a camisole to hide the corset's outline, at least 2 petticoats, 3 if you're feeling ambitious or particularly chilly, and a bustle that gives your silhouette that signature Victorian shelf effect, perfect for balancing a tray of regrets. Add a modesty panel, underskirt, overskirt, bodice, and finally, if you're truly unlucky, a series of detachable collars and cuffs, so complicated you wonder if you're dressing for breakfast or building a ship in a bottle. Somewhere in the middle of this textile marathon you find yourself sweating and gasping for air. The phrase getting dressed seems insufficient. This is more like preparing for battle. You check your appearance in the small mirror, cheeks flushed, hair already rebelling against the pins, and eyes wide with the kind of existential dread usually reserved for tax audits and family reunions. All the while, you listen for footsteps. The dressing closet is your refuge, your sanctuary, your one brief moment alone. Out there, in the grand hallways, you must present perfection, neither breathless nor rumpled, with every button and bow precisely in its place. Here, you're allowed to let out a sigh, maybe even a curse, as you wrestle with a ribbon that refuses to be tied and a petticoat that insists on tangling itself like it has unresolved emotional issues. Once the outermost gown is finally settled, swishing, gleaming and entirely impractical, you slip into your shoes, buttoned boots, because Victorian footwear designers love to challenge, and reach for your gloves. After all, nothing says dignity like trying to put on gloves when you can barely bend at the waist or breathe above a whisper. By the end, you're equal parts triumphant and exhausted. No modern spin class, no Pilates boot camp, no marathon pre-work gym selfie could ever compare. You stand, poised and composed, ready to greet the day. Out in public, no one will know the secret. The true backbone of Victorian society wasn't steel, it was whalebone, and every woman who survived the morning's corset conundrum earned the right to hold her head and her bust high. So, you step out of your dressing closet, armour in place, chin lifted, and face the world. Because in the Victorian era, getting dressed wasn't just about fashion. It was about fortitude, endurance, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you survived yet another silent war with bone, lace, and stubborn pride. Breakfast is a delicate affair, if you're lucky enough to eat in your boudoir, that is. You nibble toast with surgical precision, hoping nobody hears you crunch. After all, a real lady's hunger is supposed to be as invisible as her ankles. Let's set the stage. It's just past sunrise, the kind of muted, pearly light that makes everything look a little bit like a faded photograph. Outside your window, a faint mist curls through the street, hiding chimney pots and any evidence of early morning human activity. Inside, your room is chilly enough to make your breath cloud, but that's nothing a well-placed shawl and the promise of a tepid pot of tea can't fix. You're perched on the edge of a tiny embroidered chair, feeling both regal and ridiculous in equal measure. Here's the trick to breakfasting like a Victorian. Whatever you eat, do it quietly. You're not supposed to want food, you're supposed to be delicate. Delicate means you nibble, you sip, you act as if nourishment is purely incidental, an accident almost. The truth, of course, is that you are ravenous. No one talks about it, but corsets, emotional repression, and midnight escapes to the pantry do tend to leave one a bit peckish. The maid enters, her eyes politely averted. She sets down the tray, china cup, thin slice of toast, and, if you're lucky, a poached egg that looks almost apologetic for existing. If it's a truly special day, You might get a dab of jam, so faint you need a microscope to confirm it's not just a stain. You thank her in a voice as soft as the morning light, and wonder if she notices the desperation with which you eye the jam spoon. The next phase is strategy. You time your bites to coincide with any background noise, someone walking in the hall, a carriage rumbling past, the distant whir of the housekeeper berating a footman for breathing too loudly. Your jaw aches with the effort of quiet chewing, and you wonder if this is what it means to be a grown woman. Toast, when eaten in secrecy, takes on a sacred quality. The butter is always cold, the crumbs always threatening to betray you by landing somewhere visible. You become a master at covert crumb removal. Why the secrecy? Victorian society believed that a lady's appetite was a shameful thing, a beast to be kept on a leash. Real ladies subsisted on air, wit, and the occasional spoonful of broth. You, of course, have developed a sixth sense for smuggling snacks. Is there a spare scone hidden in your sewing box? Yes. Is there a lump of sugar tucked inside your book of Psalms? Also yes. At some point, all the self-denial turns breakfast into both a daily rebellion and a source of dark, private amusement. Occasionally you're joined by a sister, cousin, or mother, and then breakfast morphs into a ballet of polite restraint. Everyone pretends not to notice how quickly the toast disappears, how suspiciously empty the jam jar is, or why the silverware clinks so much when you think no one's looking. The conversation is as carefully composed as the food. Topics include the weather, the vicar's latest sermon, and who wore what colour gloves to church last Sunday. On rare mornings when you're alone, you let yourself relax. You might even dare to finish the whole slice of toast, or, scandal of scandals, request a second cup of tea. The boudoir, with its floral wallpaper and secret drawers, becomes your fortress of solitude, a place where you can drop the act, even if only for 10 minutes. You stretch out your legs, breathe in the scent of rose water and cold toast, and imagine what it might feel like to eat breakfast in public, loudly, with no fear of scandal. Of course, all too soon, breakfast is over. You smooth your skirts, check for stray crumbs, and prepare to face a day of social duties, embroidery, and polite starvation. Still, for a brief, golden moment, you had toast, tea, and a sliver of peace, all the forbidden luxuries a Victorian heart could desire. And that you think is worth every secret crumb. Tucked behind a false bookcase, you indulge in literary scandal, the latest French novel, banned for being too exciting. If your father knew, he'd blame the decline of society. If your mother found out, she'd want to borrow it next. Welcome to the clandestine sanctuary that every woman in a respectable Victorian household dreams of, a room within a room, dimly lit and thick with the scent of old paper and lavender sachets. This is your escape, the fortress of solitude where a girl can finally breathe. The air in here feels charged, tingling with the thrill of rebellion and just a hint of dust. You run your finger along the spines of the hidden collection. Poetry volumes you're not supposed to understand, travel memoirs you're not supposed to crave, a novel so thrilling that just holding one feels like you're halfway to Paris. You settle into a sagging armchair with stuffing trying to escape from one corner, and you draw the curtains tight. The world outside expects a model daughter or a blameless wife. In here, you're a literary outlaw. The latest acquisition is a serialized novel rumoured to be corrupting the morals of women. You've read the same paragraph 3 times, half from excitement and half from listening for footsteps in the hallway. The thrill isn't just in the prose, it's in the possibility of getting caught. You wonder if this is what a Victorian lady's adrenaline rush feels like. The reading room is more than a space, it's a confessional booth for your secret self. In the hush of this sanctuary, you let your mind wander down Parisian alleys, climb the Alps, or attend salons with dangerous intellectuals. Outside, your life is measured in teaspoons of tea and polite conversation. In here, you might fall in love, solve a murder, or become a pirate queen, at least until the clock strikes 11 and someone knocks, reminding you it's time for embroidery. Of course, it's not all romantic escapism. Some days you use your freedom for more practical purposes, reading pamphlets on women's rights, jotting down lines of poetry you'll later claim are from a friend, and secretly practicing your signature for the day when you might need to sign something important, like a letter to a publisher or a confession to your own mischief. Every so often, you hear a familiar tap at the panel. Your sister slides inside, cheeks flushed and eyes shining with the same feverish excitement. She's brought a copy of something even more daring Byron, or worse, a pamphlet by a suffragette. You two huddle together, knees pressed close, reading aloud in urgent whispers, stopping only to dissolve into helpless giggles or shush each other when the floorboards groan. You know you're not the only one. All over the house there are hints. A well-thumbed magazine tucked beneath a stack of good conduct guides, a volume of poetry wedged between the Bible and the gardening almanac. Sometimes you catch the cook glancing at a penny dreadful by the back steps, and you exchange a conspiratorial nod. The whole household is a web of secret readers, united in silent rebellion. But nothing lasts forever. Eventually the spell breaks. The grandfather clock chimes and your borrowed time runs out. You smooth your skirts, tuck the forbidden book back into its false drawer, and double-check that your face shows no trace of literary sin. The door creaks open, and you step back into the well-lit world, pulse racing, lips curved in a secret smile. You return to society, ready to nod through long discussions of boiled mutton and respectable hobbies, armed with knowledge, wit, and the quiet thrill of stories that no one can take from you. The secret reading room fades into shadow, waiting patiently for the next chapter of your rebellion. And as you walk away, you know you're not just hiding from the world, you're claiming a tiny, hard-won kingdom inside it. The house's smallest parlour is a fortress of gossip. Here, women trade secrets with the efficiency of Cold War spies. One wrong word and you're exiled to needlepoint purgatory. Step through the narrow doorway and you're enveloped by thick curtains, silk tassels, and the low buzz of conversation conducted just above a whisper. The gossamer parlour is officially designated for afternoon calls, but everyone knows it's the beating heart of the house's secret society. Here, rumours are currency, reputation is fragile, and every woman present is an amateur intelligence operative. No trench coats, just lacy shawls and dangerously sharp hairpins. You perch delicately on the edge of a velvet chair, teacup balanced and ears tuned for intel. The parlour is alive with coded language. She's looking pale means she's in trouble. He's working late again translates to her husband is definitely up to something. The real conversation always runs below the surface like a stream under the ice. If you're new to the parlour, you learn fast. If you're not, you're already fluent in the unspoken dialect of eyebrow raises and meaningful coughs. Today's hot topic, who's been seen sneaking extra pastries from the kitchen, and whether the new curate's hair is truly his own. Everyone has an opinion, no one has all the facts, and that's exactly how it should be. Information is power, and power is measured by how many juicy tidbits you possess, and how discreetly you wield them. Lady Agatha sips her tea as if it's arsenic and lets slip that Mrs. Worthington was seen at the apothecary twice in 1 week. The room goes silent, except for the sound of a teacup gently tapping its saucer in code. You contribute your own carefully curated rumour, then sit back and watch it fly around the room, morphing with each retelling until it comes back to you bearing only the faintest resemblance to your original story. This is the parlour's true sport, passing secrets so expertly that no one can trace the source. The stakes are high. If you reveal too much, you're considered reckless. If you reveal too little, you risk suspicion. Why so quiet? What do you know? The tension is as thick as the damask drapes, and make no mistake, alliances form and dissolve with alarming speed. One moment, you're sharing a cushion and a scandal with cousin Edith. The next, you're on opposite sides of the room, each pretending to ignore the other's existence. It's a bloodless battlefield, but the wounds can sting for weeks. Retribution comes not in open argument, but in the careful exclusion from the next round of whispers, the sudden lack of eye contact, the pointed suggestion that perhaps you'd be more comfortable in the drawing room with the children. Of course, there are rules. Nothing leaves the parlour unless it's meant to. To break this code is to risk exile, to be banished to a corner with nothing but a half-finished tapestry and your own thoughts for company. The worst fate of all? To be left out of the conversation, forced to guess at the news from half-heard giggles and lingering glances. But when you're on the inside, the rewards are delicious. You learn things before anyone else, who is secretly engaged, who's been caught reading novels after dinner, who accidentally dyed their hair blue with a questionable batch of homemade tonic. Sometimes the gossip is trivial, but other times it's a lifeline, a warning, or a quiet show of solidarity. Women look out for each other here, in their own sly way. Sometimes a warning whispered in the parlour is all that stands between a friend and social disaster. So you sit, sip, and scheme, feeling the heady rush of camaraderie and intrigue. In the gossamer parlour, you're not just surviving the Victorian household, you're thriving one secret at a time, and as the afternoon light slants through lace curtains, you can't help but smile. Out there, the world is ruled by men and manners. In here, the real power is yours, soft, subtle, and utterly unstoppable. You lie perfectly still on a fainting couch in a room lined with heavy drapes taking the prescribed rest cure. You're not sure what's being cured, but you do know you're missing lunch. The room itself is a world apart, air heavy with the scent of camphor and stale roses, every window shrouded in yards of velvet to keep out the invigorating rays of the sun. Somewhere beyond those curtains, you can just hear the normal life of the house. The rattle of dishes, a clock ticking, the faint but promising aroma of roast beef wafting up the stairs. But here, in the dimly lit stillness, the only thing on the menu is absolute inactivity. Your doctor, whose moustache is at least twice as long as his attention span, has diagnosed you with hysteria. It's an illness defined mostly by being a woman who's tired, annoyed, or caught rolling her eyes one too many times at a cousin's lecture on etiquette. The cure, naturally, is to do less. Much, much less. You're forbidden to read, write, or even think too hard. No embroidery, no letter writing, not even idle chat. Just rest. Hours and hours of luxurious, soul-shrivelling rest. At first, you think this sounds wonderful. Who hasn't fantasized about lying in bed all day, meals brought to you by a maid, no responsibilities, no forced conversations about how young ladies today are ruining everything? But the dream sours quickly. There are only so many cracks in the ceiling you can count before you start naming them. Your mind, used to darting from task to task, now paces the confines of this room like a caged cat. You invent dramas in the wallpaper patterns. You argue silently with invisible aunts. Every so often the doctor pops in to observe your progress, which he measures in units of docile compliance. He is pleased to find you still and silent, convinced that inactivity is healing your nerves. The truth, of course, is that you are being cured of any remaining will to live. You fantasize about small rebellions, sneaking a novel under the mattress, whispering scandalous poetry into the pillow, or simply getting up to open the window and risk a blast of cold, forbidden air. Occasionally a friend or sister is allowed to visit, tiptoeing in as if entering a chapel. She sits beside you and murmurs news of the world outside, the disastrous pudding at dinner, the neighbour's dog's latest escapade, rumours of an upcoming ball. She sneaks in a small parcel, perhaps a sweet, or a letter scrawled on a page torn from last year's calendar. You devour every word and crumb, hungry for stimulation, for anything that proves life continues beyond the velvet curtains. The rest cure, you realize, is less about healing and more about hiding. It's the Victorian solution for women who think too much, speak too quickly, or simply refuse to wilt gracefully. You begin to understand why the previous occupant of this room left a message scratched into the underside of the windowsill. Boredom kills faster than any fever. You're inclined to agree. Meanwhile, outside, life is moving on without you. Meals are eaten, jokes are shared, secrets are traded in the gossamer parlour, and somewhere, you just know, someone is eating your share of the dessert. You plot your revenge, perhaps a dramatic feint in the hallway, or a mysterious improvement just in time for the next garden party. For now, all you can do is wait, perfecting the art of appearing serene while your brain quietly revolts. By the end of your prescribed convalescence, you've become an expert at doing nothing, at least on the outside. On the inside, you're plotting, imagining, composing secret stories that will one day fill the pages of a forbidden novel. The rest cure may have locked your body in place, but your mind, stubborn and absurd as ever, has never been busier. And the next time someone suggests you just relax, you'll smile sweetly, close your eyes, and dream of a world where women are cured not by silence, but by being heard. With a book tucked under your shawl, you slip through a disguised passage to the sunroom. It's the only place in the house where you can breathe, at least until someone remembers you exist and sends for tea. There's a particular kind of freedom in the solarium, one that's rare for a Victorian woman used to rooms layered with rules, expectations, and more doilies than sense. You step quietly onto the sun-warmed tiles, sunlight pooling across the floor and making patterns on your skirt. For a brief golden hour, this sunroom is your entire universe, a space carved out between family chaos and relentless etiquette, filled with ferns and the hopeful scent of something living. Here, you're not a daughter or a wife, a hostess or a future bride. You're simply a person basking in a rare patch of honest light. The solarium is a botanical time capsule, stuffed with plants from all over the world, palms that have never seen a desert, ferns that have never seen a wild breeze. Someone once read an article in the Times about invigorating the female constitution through fresh air and foliage. So now the family collects greenery the way others collect disappointing suitors. You run a finger along a dusty leaf, inhale the earthy scent and pretend, just for a moment, that you're somewhere wilder, somewhere your shoes wouldn't get you scolded. It's not just the plants, though. It's the light itself. After a day spent navigating the dim maze of drawing rooms and the heavy gloom of over-decorated halls, the solarium's warmth feels miraculous. Here, you can finally relax your posture, sigh out loud, and loosen the metaphorical corset tightening around your soul. You settle onto a rattan chair, chosen no doubt for its tendency to creak at inopportune moments, and balance your book on your knees. The story on the page is just an excuse. Really, you're here for the silence, the solitude, and the chance to think your own thoughts without someone correcting your grammar. Of course, escape in a Victorian house is always temporary. Every so often, a distant bell rings, calling someone to tea, to the piano, to just a quick word with Aunt Clarissa about your future prospects. You flatten yourself behind a potted palm, heartbeat quickening, hoping that this time the house will forget you exist for at least 20 more minutes. It's a delicate game of hide and seek, and for now you're winning. Sometimes you share the solarium with another escape artist, a younger sister, an elderly aunt, or even the house cat, who recognizes a fellow fugitive when it sees one. You exchange a glance and a silent agreement. This room, for this hour, is a sanctuary. Conversation, if it happens at all, is light as dandelion fluff. The curious shape of a cloud, the odd behaviour of the family parrot, a gentle joke about Uncle Harold's moustache. No one dares mention marriage, inheritance, or how much longer until supper. And while the world outside the glass walls spins on, carriages rattling, maids dusting, the relentless ticking of the grandfather clock, you drift in a sunlit haze. You might even dare to nap, head tilted back, warm light making drowsy promises you're not sure you'll keep. This is the rarest kind of Victorian rest, the kind you choose for yourself, not prescribed by a doctor or orchestrated by a committee of anxious relatives. Eventually, though, the spell breaks. A servant appears, tray in hand, to inform you that Mother is looking for you. You close your book with exaggerated care, marking your place in a story you might never finish. As you rise, you take one last look at the golden afternoon light, committing it to memory as armour for the rest of the day. The solarium, with its sunlight and its impossible palms, has given you a few precious moments of peace, a secret interlude between the exhausting acts of Victorian womanhood. Tomorrow, it will all begin again. The duties, the expectations, the relentless need to be presentable and pleasing. But for now, you've remembered what it feels like to breathe, to belong to yourself, and to disappear, if only for an hour, into the gentle embrace of the sun. Within a soundproof alcove, you and your allies stitch embroidery that doubles as coded messages about who's secretly courting the vicar. It's a truth universally acknowledged that a group of Victorian women, given needle and thread and just enough privacy, will transform the innocent act of embroidery into an underground network of intelligence and intrigue. The secret sewing circle meets under the guise of ladylike industry, but the real industry is far more exciting, equal parts gossip, mutual aid, and covert operations. The air is thick with the mingled scents of lavender sachets and lamp oil, while the table overflows with skeins of thread, unfinished samplers, and, for the bold, the odd scrap of forbidden satin. As you settle onto a creaky wooden chair, you share a conspiratorial smile with your closest friend, her eyes twinkling above a formidable hoop of cross-stitch that may or may not contain the initials of her latest romantic interest, artfully disguised as a floral motif. Today, the topic at hand is the vicar, whose sudden interest in flower arranging has not gone unnoticed. With each careful jab of the needle, the group composes a running commentary: lilies for Miss Carter's blushes, daisies for Miss Harris's dangerous wit. The whole process is delightfully subversive. If anyone asks, you're working on family heirlooms. If pressed, you'll say it's for the poor. Everyone nods and pretends to believe it. But embroidery isn't the only thing being created here. The sewing circle is an unofficial support group, a safe space for questions you'd never dare ask in the breakfast room. Need advice on hiding love letters or neutralizing a rival's perfume? There's an expert at the table, needle poised and advice at the ready. Are you worried about your upcoming debut? Someone's already stitched a small good luck charm into the hem of your petticoat. Problems are unpicked, and solutions patched up with the same calm expertise that goes into every French knot and feather stitch. Of course, all the real action is in the gossip. There's the classic: have you heard about Lady Palmer's new hat? Delivered with just enough slyness to suggest the hat in question may be hiding more than bad taste. There are whispered updates on whose horse came up lame, and which local bachelor is rumoured to have a shocking fondness for strawberry jam. The bravest among you smuggle in letters from friends at other estates, coded dispatches detailing the social disasters of rival sewing circles, or better still, a scandalous poem with the names blacked out for decency's sake. Stitch by stitch, the hours slip by, as secrets are woven into linens and laughter echoes off the alcove's padded walls. It's the only room in the house where you're free to lower your voice, or raise it, without risking a report to mother or a stern word from the butler. You take comfort in the ritual, the gentle tug of the thread, the soft chatter, the way a well-timed joke can leave everyone breathless with laughter. The sewing circle has rules, of course. What's said here stays here, and no one ever leaves a dropped stitch untended. Sometimes the sewing slows and the conversation grows hushed. These are the moments when someone confides a real worry, a sick parent, a terrifying proposal, the creeping dread that the world outside the alcove will never understand how clever and alive you feel within it. The circle leans in, comfort flowing as surely as the pattern emerging beneath your hands. For a few stolen hours you're safe, shielded not just by walls, but by friendship stitched together through countless secret afternoons. As the light fades and the lamps are lit, you pack away your work, tiny masterpieces, every one a testament to more than just patience or skill. Folded among the threads and thimbles are confessions, jokes, and the unwritten history of women who refuse to be silent or simple. You sweep up stray strands of silk, straighten your skirts, and prepare to face the household once again. But you leave with more than embroidery. You carry the knowledge that somewhere in this strict, stifling world you belong, and that behind every innocent sampler there's a story only your circle can read. Hidden within the labyrinth of upstairs closets, the powder room is the epicenter of clandestine beauty rituals, covert advice, and whispered plans for next week's escape to Brighton. To the untrained eye, the powder room is just a snug little chamber, barely big enough for a mirrored vanity, a couple of mismatched chairs, and a suspicious number of empty cold cream jars. But for those in the know, it's headquarters, a war room for the daily skirmishes of Victorian femininity. The heavy velvet curtain muffles the world outside, turning every powdering session into an impromptu summit of the empire's most influential and possibly most mischievous women. It's here you learn the real tricks of the trade, how to rouge your cheeks just enough to look healthily flushed rather than scandalously lively, how to powder your nose with the right balance of mystery and confidence, and how to conceal the fact that you accidentally smudged coal on your chin while inspecting the fire grate. Elder cousins and best friends dispense this knowledge in furtive whispers, each tip passed down with the seriousness of a secret code. On the vanity, an armada of glass bottles glints in the lamplight, eau de cologne, rosewater, cold cream, pomades of uncertain origin. Some are labelled, many are not. There's always one bottle in the very back whose use remains a mystery, but whose presence is quietly reassuring. Each girl claims her signature scent. Each girl knows exactly which bottle is best for dabbing behind the ears before a dinner she'd rather not attend. Of course, the real purpose of the powder room isn't just personal maintenance, it's strategy. As you dab on a bit of rice powder or help a friend arrange her hair into an updo designed to withstand both humid weather and Aunt Agatha's withering gaze, the conversation always turns to social manoeuvres. Who's riding in which carriage to the garden party? Which aunt is angling for a proposal on your behalf? Has anyone noticed that Lady Featherstone's new Parisian lipstick looks suspiciously like crushed cherries mixed with boot polish? It's not all surface, though. When someone's voice drops to a near whisper, you know it's time for real plotting. How to slip a note to a friend stuck at the children's table, what to say to sidestep the latest rescue recommendation, or which suitor seems most likely to possess both a sense of humour and tolerable table manners. The powder room has seen tears, giggles, and the kind of confidences that only come after two people have tried, and failed, to apply false eyelashes using melted candle wax. Here, all the old divisions of rank and rivalry can briefly dissolve. An heiress helps a poor relation mend a torn hem. Sisters conspire to ensure neither gets stuck next to Cousin Bernard at supper. Even the most severe matron may let down her guard for a moment to share a tip about making lavender water, last through an endless Sunday service. The room fills with the music of shared complaints and private victories, little moments of solidarity in a world that expects perfection, but rarely supplies the instructions. But the powder room's most important function is its role as a launchpad for bold moves. With a final touch of scent and a quick pep talk, you can face the drawing room, parlour or promenade ready to survive another day. Maybe, just maybe, you'll even find a way to slip out for that forbidden trip to Brighton, your lipstick flawless and your alibi airtight. As you emerge, cheeks aglow, secrets swirling beneath perfectly coiffed hair, you know you're not alone. Every woman here has played her part in the day's little dramas and conspiracies. The world beyond the powder room might run on rules, but in here, survival is an art form, and every girl is both artist and accomplice. Beneath the pantry, a short, cramped tunnel connects the kitchen to the garden room, perfect for ferrying forbidden pastries or dispatches about who wore the wrong gloves to church. It's not on any official blueprint, of course. If you ask the butler, he'll claim the tunnel doesn't exist, and if you ask Mother, she'll just look at you over her glasses and say, "Ladies shouldn't concern themselves with architecture, but you know better. Every grand house worth its salt has at least one secret passage, and this one is yours, narrow, dusty, and alive with the echo of footsteps and giggles." Sometimes you suspect it was built by an ancestor with a taste for both cake and clandestine communications, and for that, you offer up a silent thank you each time you duck inside. The tunnel's entrance is hidden behind a rack of preserves and a strategically placed basket of potatoes, neither of which has been touched by a respectable lady in years. With the coast clear, you slip inside, carefully balancing a napkin-wrapped stack of currant scones in one hand and a folded note in the other. You take a deep breath. The air here is earthy and a little bit thrilling, spiced with the scent of flour, adventure, and occasionally last year's Christmas pudding. The floor is uneven, the ceiling low, and every step feels both risky and delightful. This is not a place for the faint-hearted or the overly tall. You move with practiced care, skirts hitched up just enough to avoid disaster, heart pounding at the thought of being caught mid-tunnel by the cook, or, worse, the house cat, who treats this space as a personal kingdom. Halfway through, you pause to check your note, a list of minor scandals and vital instructions, written in the elegant, looping script that generations of young ladies have perfected for the express purpose of passing secrets. Emerging at the other end, you find yourself in the soft sunlight of the garden room. This is where the real work of the afternoon begins, arranging tea, smiling sweetly, and of course making sure the right person receives the right pastry and the right tidbit of gossip. You hand off the scones to your waiting co-conspirator, who looks far too innocent to be plotting anything. She tucks the note into her reticule and grins, a signal that all is well. The tunnel isn't just a shortcut for snacks, it's the nerve centre of your little network, the safest way to pass along everything from heartfelt apologies, "I'm sorry I called your bonnet unusual," to subtle threats. "If you reveal my secret engagement, you'll never see another ginger biscuit." It's seen plans for midnight escapades, elaborate birthday surprises, and more than one emergency rescue of a love letter dropped in the wrong lap. Even the grown-ups, if they ever admit to knowing, pretend not to care. Maybe they remember their own days of dashing through the shadows, laughter muffled by velvet curtains and urgent whispers. Maybe, in a world ruled by etiquette and expectation, they know the power of a place where rules bend and alliances are forged over flour-dusted fingertips. As tea is served in the garden room, you settle into your chair, cheeks flushed from your subterranean sprint and eyes sparkling with mischief. The table looks perfectly innocent. Porcelain teapots, gleaming spoons, and just enough scones for everyone, assuming, of course, no one counts too closely. As polite conversation ripples around you, the real business happens quietly. A sideways glance, a note slipped under a saucer, a faint cough that signals it's your turn to smuggle news back through the tunnel. One day, perhaps, the grown-ups will seal the tunnel or try to fill it with bricks and warnings. But for now, it remains your private artery of chaos and camaraderie, a reminder that beneath every prim Victorian tea, the pulse of mischief and secret sisterhood is alive and well, ferrying scones and secrets wherever they need to go. Sometimes the only safe place is inside the wardrobe, surrounded by petticoats, contemplating which hat best communicates I'm not listening. Welcome to the true sanctuary of Victorian domestic life. Not the drawing room, not the library, but the dark, quiet world inside your wardrobe. It's less Narnia and more nap and avoidance, but for anyone trapped in a house overflowing with obligations, opinions, and ominous footsteps on the landing, it's paradise. Here, the air is thick with the scent of lavender sachets, wool, and the faint whiff of last winter's mothballs. The outside world is muffled, reduced to a distant hum behind a barricade of skirts and crinolines. It's not a prison, it's a fortress, and you are the queen. There is no judgment in the wardrobe. In here you can huddle on the cedar floorboards surrounded by an army of clothing more numerous than your list of weekly chores. There's the travelling suit you've never actually worn on a journey, the summer muslin that never quite recovered from last year's lemonade incident, and the old ball gown so stiff with memory and boning that it could stand upright without you. Each garment holds a story, and in a pinch can also absorb tears, laughter, or the occasional snack filched from the pantry. Most importantly, the wardrobe is a place where fashion transforms from performance to protection. Outside, every outfit is calculated. Which colour is least likely to offend Great Aunt Millicent? Which dress says demure, and which says just try to make me go to another tea dance? But in here, you're free to try on anything without commentary, to pile on every shawl and ribbon until you resemble a very determined decorative pillow, or to nestle down in your petticoats and decide that today you simply don't have the constitution to be seen. The best moments are when you're hidden away, quietly observing the small dramas of the household through a crack in the wardrobe door. You become invisible, a silent witness to the grand parade of callers, the arguments about wallpaper, and the endless scurrying of servants carrying trays you hope will soon come your way. Sometimes you even hear your own name, called repeatedly, as you press yourself deeper into the muslin jungle and pray that no one will look for you in your fortress of solitude. The wardrobe, after all, is the one place no one ever expects to find a sensible woman, probably because it's where all the sensible women have already hidden. Wardrobes are also laboratories for reinvention. Want to see what kind of person wears all black, or how it feels to march around in your brother's old waistcoat? This is the place. You try on hats, floppy, feathery, outrageously wide-brimmed, seeking the perfect piece of armour for whatever emotional siege awaits you in the dining room. You hold up a veil and imagine life as a mysterious widow, or wrap a scarf around your head and practice the look of a world-weary traveller, ready to leave behind this house of endless demands for the thrill of the continent, or at least the neighbour's less noisy garden. Of course, your wardrobe hideaway isn't just about fashion, it's about escape, about carving out a slice of peace in a world that expects you to be visible, available, and smiling at all times. Here, you can collect your thoughts, compose yourself, or just take a nap on a pile of last season's rejected ruffles. The outside world can wait. For these precious moments, you are untouchable, swaddled in layers of lace and autonomy. Eventually you'll have to emerge, dusting off your skirts, selecting the least approachable bonnet, and smoothing your hair into the socially acceptable level of chaos. But as you step back into the bright, judgmental hallways, you carry the confidence of someone who has faced the terrors of the day from inside a fortress of silk and wool and survived. After all, every lady knows, sometimes fashion is armour, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply choose not to be found. You retreat to a perfume chamber where every bottle is labelled for nerves, but you know the real use, masking the smell of fear and yesterday's soup. The scented sanctuary is one of the Victorian home's best-kept secrets, half pharmacy, half confessional, tucked behind a door that squeaks just enough to give you fair warning of approaching mothers or maids. The shelves are crowded with little glass bottles, each one boasting an ornate label: tonic of tranquility, rose essence for melancholy, spirit of lavender for rest. It's a paradise for the anxious and the over-perfumed, a place where you can inhale deeply and pretend for a fleeting moment that your biggest worry is whether the bergamot is more uplifting than the verbena. Of course, the real genius of the scented sanctuary is its ability to mask anything. Sadness, nerves, last night's onions, gone in a single spritz of odour something. You select your favourite vial and dab a bit onto your wrists, careful not to spill. Even the act of applying scent is ritualistic, a moment of stillness in a world that expects you to be in motion, doing, fixing, smiling. It's a brief, fragrant pause, an excuse to linger in a room that no one else ever seems to need quite as badly as you do. On the small marble table there's an arsenal: cut crystal atomizers, sachets of dried lavender and rosemary, a silver tray with vials of opoponax and violet. You mix, match, and layer as your mood demands, inventing combinations that promise everything from cheerful disposition to immunity from awkward dinner conversation. Some bottles are half empty, relics of emotional emergencies past, while others are brand new, their scent still mysterious and a little too strong. The truth is, everyone in the house has a scent story. Mother prefers rosewater, convinced it conveys an air of delicate suffering. Your eldest sister is loyal to violet, a scent that lingers in the hallways long after she's stormed upstairs. Even the cook pinches your lemon balm sachets for reasons she refuses to discuss. In the scented sanctuary, these differences are laid bare. It's not just about perfume, it's about self-defense, about cloaking yourself in something that isn't expectation or fear. Some days you come to the sanctuary to fortify yourself for whatever fresh nonsense the day is brewing. Maybe it's a difficult caller, a tedious afternoon with the needlepoint brigade, or the looming threat of another rescue. You choose a scent like a shield: sharp peppermint for courage, orange blossom for hope, sandalwood for a sense of grounding that no amount of social upheaval can shake. You breathe deeply, eyes closed, and let the aroma fill your chest until your pulse steadies and your mind clears. But the sanctuary is more than just a refuge. It's also a listening post. Sometimes a sister will slip in, closing the door with a conspiratorial click. You share stories and secrets, swapping bottles and advice, blending scents and sympathies until the air is heavy with both. You craft coded gifts for friends, tiny pillows filled with herbs for calm, or a dab of neroli on a handkerchief for luck. In a world where emotional honesty is rationed like sugar, a well-chosen scent can say what words cannot. There's always the danger, of course, of overdoing it. A cloud of patchouli can send the family into panic. Is that incense? Are you joining a cult? While too much jasmine guarantees a round of questioning about your nerves. You learn to blend subtly, to carry your courage in small doses, to mask only what needs masking. Eventually you'll have to step out, rejoining the world, freshly scented, carrying yourself just a little taller. The perfumed armour lingers as you face the dining room, the drawing room, the endless parade of social demands. For a moment you're untouchable, swaddled in fragrance and the certainty that whatever the day throws at you, you can survive it. One quiet breath at a time. Because in the Victorian house, strength often comes in small bottles, and sometimes the bravest act is simply to pause, scent your handkerchief, and carry your own sanctuary with you wherever you go. Within the walls, a hidden chute delivers forbidden notes from friends, sisters, and the occasional suitor. Today, you discover a letter that smells suspiciously of roses and trouble. Let's be honest. In a Victorian house, secrets rarely travel in straight lines. The household may run on etiquette, but the true lifeblood is correspondence, covert, convoluted, and always at risk of discovery. The letterbox labyrinth is the beating heart of your personal spy network, a system of secret chutes and compartments ingeniously hidden, behind wainscoting, under the staircase, and occasionally within the world's most suspiciously squeaky floorboard. Only a few trusted souls know how it works. The rest suspect nothing, their daily routines oblivious to the coded conversation zipping past their elbows. Today's discovery arrives mid-morning, as sunlight slants through the drawing-room windows and the household busies itself with dusting and draping. You slip away, pretending to search for a lost glove, and duck behind a heavy velvet curtain. There, with a practiced flick of your wrist, you tug a panel loose to reveal the latest delivery. The letter slides out with a faint thud, wrapped in blue paper, the seal stamped with a pressed flower. It smells sweet and faintly dangerous, definitely not the official family stationery. The art of the secret letter is equal parts craft and caution. First rule, never write in your own hand if you can help it. That's what lessons in disguised script were really for, after all. Second, always choose your messenger wisely. The younger siblings are reliable if bribed with sugared almonds. The family cat less so, though she's carried messages more than once with a note tied to her collar. You remember last week's adventure, rescuing a water-stained missive from beneath the garden hedge, courtesy of a well-meaning but easily distracted spaniel. What's in the letter today? Maybe it's news from your dearest friend, reporting on the latest disaster at her own dinner table. Maybe it's a poem, lines so overwrought with longing that you have to bite your lip not to giggle or blush. Or, more thrilling still, it could be from a certain young man, alluding in veiled metaphors to last week's forbidden dance, hinting at a midnight rendezvous under the yew trees. You unfold the paper carefully, eyes darting to the door, heart beating in time with the grandfather clock 2 rooms away. The world outside thinks correspondence is a genteel art. Formal invitations, thank you notes, and the occasional cousin writing from India. But inside these walls, it's survival. Here is where alliances are forged, friendships are maintained, and forbidden romances spark into life. The letterbox labyrinth is how you tell your sister that mother is on the warpath about the missing dessert spoon, or how you warn a friend that Aunt Millicent is planning to corner her about her future prospects at the next luncheon. Of course, not every note is a declaration of undying love or a whispered warning. Some are simply comfort, delivered in a pinch, a scrawled joke, a sketch of the cook's fearsome new hat, a recipe for jam pilfered from the kitchen and shared for solidarity. These little acts of kindness, fleeting, unseen, are the glue that holds the secret world of the house together. But there are risks. There's always the possibility of interception, a letter falling into the wrong hands, a wax seal broken by a nosy sibling, a message accidentally delivered to mother, resulting in an awkward family discussion you won't soon forget. The art of correspondence is a dance of anticipation and evasion, every message a calculated risk. You tuck today's letter into your pocket, its scent and secrets lingering long after you rejoin the household. All day, you carry the thrill of it with you, a small, tangible reminder that beneath the proper surface, the house is alive with coded messages and the hope of midnight meetings. And so the labyrinth continues, twisting, turning, always growing more complex, just like your own heart. In a world that watches everything, there's power in having something all your own. A note, a secret, a promise delivered quietly through the walls. You close the sliding door to the music room, not because you want to practice, but because banging on the pianoforte is the only way to drown out your family's opinions. There's something about the music room that invites both performance and rebellion. The rest of the house is a maze of rules. Sit up straight, speak when spoken to, keep your opinions and ankles concealed. But in here, with heavy velvet curtains drawn and the sliding doors clicked quietly shut, you are sovereign. The faint clamour of siblings arguing over tea, the never-ending stream of household advice, and the persistent drone of mother reading aloud from the latest etiquette manual gone, all replaced by the glorious noise of a piano chord played with slightly more enthusiasm than skill. Officially, you are practicing, a duty that's supposed to cultivate grace, discipline, and a pleasing sense of accomplishment. Unofficially, this is your license to be loud, to thunder out your frustrations and pound the keys until even the dog flees the hallway. You suspect that if Beethoven had been forced to attend 4 social calls and a tattered lace lesson before breakfast, his Fifth Symphony would have sounded even more dramatic. Your hands are not always precise, but they are passionate. Today, you murder a few sonatas and improvise a waltz that starts out delicate, but soon resembles the soundtrack to a minor household emergency. Each wrong note is secretly delicious, each too loud chord a small act of defiance. If a family member dares to peek in, you simply glare, play a scale, and announce that you need to perfect your technique. They rarely argue. After all, the music room is sacred territory, and one does not disturb a lady in the throes of Chopin, however suspicious her tempo. But the music room isn't just about noise, it's a haven for creative plotting. There's a little stack of blank music sheets tucked into the piano bench, ostensibly for composing. In reality, they serve as the perfect notepad for secret messages, subversive poems, or sketching the butler in caricature when he's being especially insufferable. Sometimes, you swap these masterpieces with a sibling, passing them between practices like musical contraband. Other times, you just scribble out your feelings in bass clef, a private diary set to the rhythm of your day. On quiet afternoons, the room is your stage. You pretend the parlour is packed with adoring fans, or, at the very least, not filled with relatives waiting to criticise your fingering. You bow to the invisible audience, launch into a dramatic nocturne, and let your worries dissolve into melody. The music room's acoustics are forgiving. They turn every clumsy run into a grand flourish, every sigh into a passing breeze. The world outside falls away, and for a brief, precious time, you are the composer, conductor, and critic. Occasionally you use the room for more strategic purposes. It's the perfect spot for private meetings under the guise of practice. Your friend sits at the harp strumming distractedly, while you quietly exchange news and updates. If the conversation turns risky, you simply crescendo, drowning secrets in the thunder of a well-timed scale. The servants know better than to interrupt, and your mother, convinced that every hour at the piano increases your marriage prospects, is only too happy to leave you undisturbed. Of course, eventually your fingers tire, the fantasy ends, and the outside world seeps in. Someone knocks on the door, announcing dinner or demanding their turn at the instrument. You rise, smooth your skirt, and tuck a rebellious curl behind your ear. The music room, with its mismatched chairs and battered metronome, has done its work. You're soothed, strengthened, and just a bit more ready to face the next round of polite conversation and barely veiled criticism. Because in a Victorian house, sometimes the only way to keep your composure is to lose yourself in sound, to play until your thoughts settle, to drown out the world with a little controlled chaos, and to emerge, however briefly, in tune with yourself. Pencil in hand, you sketch portraits of people who would be absolutely horrified to see themselves rendered with devil horns. You blame artistic expression and hope no one notices. The drawing room, with its elegant wallpaper and prudish furniture, is meant to be the stage for respectability, a place for genteel conversation, polite card games, and the showing off of mediocre needlework. But for you, it's a secret studio, an art gallery of gentle anarchy hidden in plain sight. While the adults discuss the price of coal and the latest scandal about Mrs. Larkin's disastrous dinner party, you're hunched over your sketchbook, creating a collection that would send your art teacher and most of your relatives into apoplexy. You keep your materials close at hand, tucked behind a stack of sombre etiquette manuals. Your weapon of choice, a graphite pencil sharpened to a deadly point, and a small block of soft eraser that could erase not just mistakes, but entire unflattering chins and the evidence of mischief. Sometimes you pretend to doodle an innocent still life of the tea service, but in truth, you're busy capturing the smug curve of Uncle Bernard's moustache or the uniquely terrifying eyebrows of Miss Featherstone, each time adding a devilish flourish that gives away your true intentions. Art, you see, is your rebellion. In a world where even your thoughts are expected to be tidy, you let them spill over onto the page, exaggerated, unapologetic, and secretly wicked. You gift the cook a pair of angel wings. You give the most pompous cousin a tail. For Lady Agatha, whose glare can curdle milk, you bestow the full regalia of a medieval villain, complete with an absurdly large sceptre labelled Rules. It's catharsis, and as long as you keep your sketchbook angled away from prying eyes, no one is the wiser. Occasionally a sibling or friend glimpses a forbidden sketch. The giggles are instantaneous, stifled behind handkerchiefs, and always followed by solemn vows of secrecy. Sometimes you even take requests. Draw father as a pirate. Make the vicar look like he's sitting on a frog. The results are proudly displayed for precisely 2 minutes before being tucked safely away. Even the maid, upon discovering one of your more flattering renditions of herself, slips you an extra scone at tea as a silent thank you. Of course, the danger is ever present. The grown-ups are quick to remind you that drawing is a ladylike pursuit only when it involves flowers, landscapes, or sentimental family pets. Anything else, especially caricature, especially with horns, might be considered evidence of a wayward disposition. So you maintain your mask of concentration, nodding politely at every observation about the weather, while your pencil works a small revolution on the page. Sometimes, your sketches are not rebellious, but confessional. You draw the things you wish you could say. The weight of boredom during a long sermon, the tightness of your shoes, the curiosity about the outside world that no one else seems to feel. A subtle drawing of yourself, peeking out from behind a curtain, a smirk on your face as you eavesdrop on the grown-ups. Your art becomes a record of resistance and longing, a map of everything you're not allowed to be in daylight. By the end of the afternoon, you've created a private gallery, portraits both honest and fantastical, a testament to the hidden depths beneath your calm exterior. The sketches are quietly filed away, tucked between the pages of the most boring etiquette book you own. No one ever opens it, not even Mother. As the drawing room empties and you gather your pencils, you feel a little lighter, a little more yourself. Because sometimes the greatest act of rebellion is a laugh stifled behind a teacup, a devil horn drawn on a family member, or the quiet knowledge that you see the world in ways no one else quite dares. In the Victorian house, where everything is meant to be proper and contained, your art slips through the cracks, a silent rebellion, a sketchbook of secret joy. Sometimes the pantry is the safest room in the house. You and your sisters conspire over stale biscuits, discussing who's getting married off next and whether the jam is secretly gin. Let's be honest, Victorian kitchens are not known for their warmth or welcome, unless you happen to visit them under cover of darkness, long after the grown-ups have retired and the servants are too tired to care. That's when the pantry transforms from a cold, utilitarian storage space into the epicenter of illicit joy. The door creaks softly as you slip inside, followed by the familiar shuffle of slippered feet. A candle in a teacup flickers on the shelf, and the shelves themselves, groaning under the weight of flour, preserves, and mysterious tins, become the backdrop for a kind of secret society. Tonight, you and your sisters have come seeking both sustenance and sanctuary. The official story is that you're all helping Mother by inventorying supplies. The real story is the rumbly chorus of stomachs and the urgent need to swap stories you'd never dare share at breakfast. Someone finds a plate of leftover scones, a bit harder than strictly ideal, but nothing that can't be remedied with a good slather of suspiciously boozy jam. Someone else discovers a tin of tea biscuits older than the baby cousin, and you all agree that if you dip them in tea long enough, they become almost edible. Here, in the dim pantry light, you're safe to let your guard down. You can laugh too loudly, roll your eyes at the latest marriage proposal, or lack thereof, and voice the worries you'd never admit in the bright judgmental glare of the drawing room. It's where you can confess the real reason you lost Aunt Millicent's dreadful brooch, or speculate about what exactly is growing at the back of the cheese shelf. When someone dares to suggest the jam's suspicious flavour comes from more than just fruit, the laughter is loud and unfiltered. It's also the place where secrets are shared and alliances are forged. Who's next in line for the family matchmaking gauntlet? Who is dreading their upcoming piano recital? Who has a crush on the vicar, and who thinks the vicar is really just after the family's apple orchard? The pantry is the only room where honesty outweighs etiquette, and where the greatest comfort comes not from what you eat, but from the company you keep. There are rules, of course, unspoken, but sacred. Never tell what was said in the pantry. Always save the last biscuit for the youngest, and never, under any circumstances, tattle about who finished the last of the special jam. If the cook discovers you, she'll either join in or send you scurrying with a stern lecture and a wink. If a brother stumbles upon your counsel, he's sworn to secrecy, or bribed with a leftover tart. Sometimes the conversation turns serious, hushed and heavy with hopes and worries too fragile for daylight. The pantry has witnessed tears over broken hearts, nervous giggles over first kisses, and solemn pacts to defend each other against whatever new madness tomorrow brings. Hands reach out in the darkness, one to offer a biscuit, another to squeeze comfortingly. Here, sisterhood is not just a word, but a lifeline. Eventually the candle burns low and the cold creeps in. One by one you slip out, cheeks flushed with laughter and secrets, crumbs trailing behind like a map for future adventurers. As you tiptoe back to your rooms, you know you'll carry the comfort of these midnight feasts with you. A tiny rebellion, a small slice of freedom in a world of restrictions. The pantry may be meant for flour and sugar, but on these nights it's filled with the sweeter sustenance of sisterhood and shared adventure. Tomorrow you'll nod demurely at the breakfast table, hiding a knowing smile. For tonight, though, you've tasted both jam and joy, and found that, at least for a few secret hours, there's nothing quite so delicious. There's a mirror for every angle, but who's watching whom? Here, you master the art of seeing without being seen, adjusting your expression for maximum plausible deniability. The Victorian house is a palace of reflection, and not just in the metaphorical sense. Nearly every room boasts at least one imposing mirror, some with ornate gilt frames, others tucked into secret corners where you'd least expect them. The result is a labyrinth of glass, a place where you're never quite sure whether you're alone or being watched by the house itself. The mirrors are everywhere, above the fireplace, on the wardrobe doors, in the hall, even strategically angled in the staircase landing so that no scandalous smirk or unladylike eye roll escapes unnoticed. Your relationship with these mirrors is complicated. In the morning, you study your reflection with the precision of a detective. Is your hair behaving or staging a mutiny? Does your dress make you look charming or suspiciously like last year's gooseberry tart? A little powder here, a smile practiced there, and voila! You are ready for inspection by the world, or at least by mother. But mirrors are never just about vanity. They're surveillance devices, reminders that you're always on display. Sometimes you catch a glimpse of a sibling in the adjoining glass, also perfecting their "I'm not listening" face for Aunt Edith's next monologue. At other times you notice a faint shadow, someone lingering in the doorway, watching you watch yourself, trying to decipher what you're really thinking behind that well-practiced expression. In this house, plausible deniability is an art. and the mirror is both your canvas and your shield. The most challenging part of the mirror maze is learning to control your own narrative. You experiment with expressions, a flash of indignation, a hint of amusement, the carefully composed blankness that says, "I heard nothing, I know nothing, I am merely pondering embroidery." You catch yourself pulling faces behind closed doors, practicing looks you'd never dare deploy in the dining room. Each glance in the mirror becomes a rehearsal for life's endless parade of subtle social performances. Mirrors also bear witness to your private rebellions. You might mouth the words you wish you could say aloud, or strike a ridiculous pose just to remind yourself you still can. Occasionally you even test out new identities, tilting your hat at a rakish angle, draping a shawl over your head, channeling the heroine of the scandalous French novel tucked under your pillow. The mirror reflects all your secret selves, offering a momentary escape from the constant choreography of Victorian womanhood. Of course, mirrors are also the source of household legend. There are stories about the one in the hall, how it once caught Cousin Beatrice sneaking sweets before dinner, or how it reflected Uncle George's bald spot in such a revealing way that he moved it behind the ficus. Everyone in the house has a tale about being ambushed by their own reflection, and everyone has developed their own methods for using the mirrors to their advantage, eavesdropping on conversations, checking for approaching parents, or sending silent signals to a sister across the room. The real trick, though, is to remember that mirrors only show so much. They reveal the surface, the artful smile, the perfectly arranged hair, the hands folded demurely in your lap, but they never betray the thoughts running wild beneath. When you've mastered the mirror maze, you know how to reveal just enough. A touch of worry to earn sympathy, a flash of surprise at perfectly expected news, a look of awe for the world's least awe-inspiring hat. As the sun sets and the mirrors shimmer in the gaslight, you catch your reflection one last time before bed. There you are, composed, mysterious, and just a little amused at the elaborate game of seeing and being seen. You blow yourself a conspiratorial kiss, turn away, and leave the mirrors to ponder their own secrets. In this house of glass and performance, you've learned that the truest reflection is the one you carry inside, and that, perhaps, is the cleverest disguise of all. You steal a moment's peace in the nursery, where toys are as scattered as your thoughts, and the only people who understand you are under 3 feet tall. The nursery, ostensibly a place of noise and chaos, is, paradoxically, one of the rare safe harbours in the Victorian household. It's the only room where nobody expects you to look immaculate or sound intelligent, and the only place you can vanish without being missed for at least 10 blessed minutes. The grown-ups steer clear, unwilling to risk a stray building block to the ankle or an accidental splash of jam. The result? An island of relative calm, if your definition of calm includes the sound of tin drums and the steady drone of a nursery rhyme being sung for the 42nd time today. It is here, among the jumble of rag dolls, spinning tops and picture books, that you can truly drop your guard. You slip off your shoes, ignoring the faint stickiness on the floor, best not to ask, and settle into the battered rocking chair, creaking in time with your own quiet sigh. The room smells of talcum powder, warm milk, and 100 tiny sticky fingers, a surprisingly comforting blend. Around you, small faces peek out from behind furniture forts, some shy, some mischievous, all unfazed by your sudden invasion. There's an ease to nursery life that the rest of the house lacks. Children operate according to their own mysterious logic. They ask questions without worrying if they're appropriate, and they accept your answers, however outlandish, with the same gravity as the Queen's speech. Why does Uncle Edward have no hair? What happens if you eat 3 spoonfuls of jam at once? Is it true that grown-ups never have any fun? You answer honestly, or at least creatively, and are rewarded with wide-eyed stares and giggles, the sincerest audience you'll find all day. Motherhood, or even temporary guardianship is its own kind of sanctuary. Here, you're not Miss So-and-so or Lady something or other. You're just the teller of stories, the fixer of broken doll arms, the orchestrator of the world's shortest and most unevenly matched games of hide and seek. The little ones cling to your skirt, climb onto your lap, and demand you read the one about the clever fox for the 5th time, each repetition an incantation against the grown-up world's many demands. The nursery escape is not just about play, though. It's about permission to feel, to be tired, to admit confusion or boredom or even sadness. When the rest of the house is a stage, the nursery is backstage, where you can rub your temples, let your hair escape its pins, and confide your worries to an audience too young to judge. Sometimes you find yourself venting softly to a row of stuffed animals, or confessing your anxieties to the baby, who rewards your honesty with a gurgling laugh or an enthusiastic drool. And while you hide, life in the nursery carries on at its own frenetic pace. Building blocks topple, tea parties commence, and someone inevitably needs rescuing from beneath the ottoman. Yet you find that surrounded by chaos, your mind is calmer than it's been in hours. Here, there are no whispered criticisms, no urgent invitations, no pressure to maintain appearances. Your world is reduced to its essentials: laughter, tears, jam, and the hope that nobody outside remembers to look for you until you're ready. Soon enough, someone will call you back to the fray. A dinner bell, a distant knock, a gentle, "Where have you gone, dear?" But for a brief golden time, you are not a performer but a person, shielded by a fortress of alphabet blocks and the unshakable loyalty of small children. So you rock a little longer, smiling at the fort-building, jam-smearing, ever-forgiving crowd around you. For in this topsy-turvy corner of the house, motherhood is a refuge, childhood is an art form, and escape is just another word for survival. And when you finally step back out into the world of starched collars and tight smiles, you carry with you a reminder. Sometimes, the wisest place to hide is exactly where nobody thinks to look. Some say the true centre of power is the upstairs lunchroom, where sandwiches are cut with ruthless precision and alliances are forged over cucumber slices. To the uninitiated, the upstairs luncheon looks entirely innocent. A sunlit room with a dainty tablecloth, polite conversation, and a suspiciously generous supply of napkins. But to those in the know, it's the beating heart of the house's covert operations. Here, away from the watchful eyes and sharp ears of the drawing room and dining hall, the household's real politics unfold, one meticulously trimmed sandwich at a time. You enter to a chorus of greetings and the polite clatter of porcelain. The lunchroom is filled with a gentle haze of anticipation and the scent of fresh bread and strong tea. Your seat is already chosen for you, your place set with military precision. Everyone knows the unwritten seating chart, who gets the corner with the best light, who always sits nearest the sandwiches, and who is relegated to the spot closest to the draughty window for some offence long forgotten. At the centre of the table, the sandwiches glisten under their domed cover, triangles of cucumber, paper-thin ham on white, maybe even a risky smear of horseradish if cook is feeling rebellious. But food is only the beginning. With every bite, the conversation turns a little sharper, the laughter just a bit too loud, the compliments edged with subtle warnings. This is the true upstairs club, a battleground where alliances are as fickle as the weather and just as quick to change. You've learned to read the coded language of the luncheon. Would you care for more mustard? Means I know what you said to Aunt Beatrice. This bread is a touch stale translates to, we need to plot before supper. Even the humble cucumber slice carries weight, a signal, a peace offering, sometimes even a veiled threat, especially if delivered with a pointed glance. It's not the House of Commons, but sometimes it feels even more cutthroat. Sandwiches are distributed with great ceremony and everyone's watching to see who gets the last piece of cake. Is it given as a sign of favour or as a test? Did someone switch the sugar for salt again, or is that just the taste of betrayal? Laughter rises and falls like a tide, and in the pauses plans are made. Who will accidentally spill tea on whom at the next garden party? Whose poem will be left out for the vicar to find? And, most importantly, who will take the blame when mother notices the missing sherry? But the luncheon isn't only for mischief. It's also a sanctuary for those in need, a confidant's ear, a word of encouragement, the silent promise that someone will slip you a second scone if you're looking sad. The room is alive with whispered support and conspiratorial glances. You share stories of triumph and disaster, trading advice on everything from stain removal to matchmaking. The bonds forged here are durable, sealed with crumbs and clandestine laughter. Some days the club takes on a philanthropic bent, plotting small kindnesses for the cook, or planning the great jam rescue mission to replenish the pantry after last night's snack emergency. Other times, the talk turns serious, as secrets are shared over chicken salad and tiny sandwiches disappear at record speed. You know who's afraid of the dark, who's dreading their first ball, and who can be counted on to distract the adults when escape is required. Eventually the luncheon ends, the last crumbs swept up, the napkins folded, the members dispersing with innocent smiles and the knowledge that, should the world fall apart before dinner, you'll face it together. For all its seemingly genteel surface, the upstairs lunchroom is where the household's future is mapped out, its power carefully balanced on the edge of a cucumber sandwich. You leave with the taste of secrets and fresh bread lingering, the faintest trace of triumph in your step. For a brief hour you are part of something bigger than yourself, a club without a name, but with all the best sandwiches. In the intricate dance of Victorian life, the upstairs luncheon is both a refuge and a command centre, and as everyone knows, the best revolutions begin over tea. Sometimes the only way out is through the servants' stairwell. Here, you learn more about the family fortunes in 5 minutes than you'd hear in a month of parlour talk. The servants' shortcut is not on any official tour of the house. It's a narrow, steep and faintly mysterious stairwell squeezed between the kitchen and the upper floors, its wood worn smooth by generations of hurried feet. Technically, you're not supposed to use it. Ladies of the house are expected to glide down the grand staircase, trailing silk and social standing. But desperate times call for desperate measures, whether you're escaping an argument with mother, dodging the world's dullest suitor, or just craving a little unsupervised air. It's in these shadowy utilitarian corridors that the true pulse of the house beats loudest. Every landing is a crossroads of secret errands and hushed exchanges. The scent of baking bread drifts up from the kitchens, mingling with the sharper tang of polish and soap. Down here, voices are rarely hushed. The servants' conversations, animated, unguarded, and utterly unfiltered, are a world apart from the polite restraint of the drawing room. And you, moving carefully so your skirts don't snag on the splintery rail, become an accidental observer of a much livelier world. You pause in the dim light, just out of sight, listening as 2 housemaids debate the true fate of the missing candlesticks, sold, not stolen apparently to pay off someone's gambling debts. The butler, always so dignified in public, is overheard complaining about Master Henry's creative method for dodging his arithmetic tutor. There's even gossip about Lady Agatha's latest rescue. The consensus is that she's hiding in the attic and surviving on a diet of sherry and brandy snaps. Each snippet is worth more than gold. Servants know everything. Who's falling in love, who's falling out, which family secrets are safe, and which are one spilled cup of tea away from being common knowledge. The stairwell itself seems to hum with secrets, the walls absorbing confessions and betrayals as surely as they soak up the ever-present draught. Of course, you can't linger too long. The shortcut is a thoroughfare, and you risk being discovered by cook, who'll assign you to potato peeling duty, or, worse, by the housekeeper, whose disapproval could curdle fresh cream. You tiptoe onward, shoes slipping slightly on the steps, heart pounding with the thrill of the forbidden. The shortcut isn't just a place for eavesdropping. Sometimes it's the site of accidental meetings. Two siblings caught plotting a pantry raid, a blushing parlour maid pressed against the wall to let you pass. Occasionally you're swept up in a minor emergency. A runaway cat, a toppled tray, a dress hem hastily mended with a bit of leftover ribbon. Down here, social hierarchies blur ever so slightly, and everyone is too busy, too tired, or too curious to stand on ceremony. As you reach the end of the stairwell, you emerge into the bright, ordered world of the family's domain. You smooth your skirts, adopt your most innocent expression, and glide back into the rhythm of polite conversation. But now you hold a hidden advantage, real information. You know who pilfered the jam, what's actually wrong with the boiler, and which relative is plotting a mysterious business trip to Brighton. The servant shortcut, for all its narrowness and dust, offers a freedom no grand hallway can match. It's a place to witness life without pretense, to gather intelligence, and for just a few moments, to be nobody in particular, a shadow among shadows, eyes and ears wide open. Back upstairs, as you're handed a teacup and asked about your plans for the afternoon, you nod politely, thinking of everything you've learned in 5 secretive minutes. The real life of the house pulses below, out of sight, in the spaces where everyone is just a little more honest and a lot more interesting. For every lady marooned at a dull tea, there's always the servant shortcut, a narrow, crooked path to the real story. High above the noise you create, writing, painting, or simply staring out the window, pondering escape to Paris or, failing that, the neighbour's less complicated life. The attic atelier is the great uncharted territory of the Victorian house. It's not on the official map of respectable rooms, and that's exactly why it becomes your sanctuary. You climb the narrow, creaking staircase, stepping around trunks of moth-eaten costumes, broken hat boxes, and the ghosts of 100 unfinished projects until you reach the door at the very top. There, a tiny room flooded with golden light waits patiently for your arrival. The air is a little stale, tinged with dust and turpentine, but up here you can finally exhale. You close the door behind you and leave the rest of the house below, sinking into blissful semi-obscurity. No one expects perfection in the attic. The only rules are the ones you make for yourself, and even those can be broken when the mood demands. Here, you are not someone's daughter, sister, or charity case. You are a secret artist, a rogue poet, a dreamer with paint under your fingernails and ink stains on your cuffs. You set up your easel near the single, slanting window. Outside, the rooftops stretch away like a patchwork quilt, and the sky is always a little closer than it seems on the ground. When inspiration strikes, you dash off a watercolour of the rain gutter, write a hasty sonnet to the shape of the clouds, or compose a letter to an imaginary Parisian friend, someone who surely lives on croissants and never has to host a tea for 30. The attic is a place for daydreams and defiance. Sometimes your creative efforts go spectacularly awry. A self-portrait turns into a comic grotesque. A poem veers from tragic to absurd. A landscape painting ends up with an unintentional sheep the size of a carriage. But up here, mistakes are private, and laughter is the best kind of criticism. You try new things simply because you can, mixing strange colours, reading aloud in terrible French, even dancing clumsily across the floor when you need to shake out a stubborn idea. You're not always alone. The attic attracts fellow conspirators, sisters hoping to sketch, friends in need of confessional space, sometimes even the family cat, who has a taste for solitude and sunbeams. There are moments of quiet collaboration, of voices overlapping as you debate rhyme schemes or the best shade of green for the neighbour's hedge. Sometimes you all just sit in silence, each person lost in their own pursuit of peace. Outside the attic, the house is a whirlwind of activity and expectation. So many duties, so many eyes, so many rules. In the atelier, none of that matters. If you want to paint a portrait of the butler wearing a crown of daisies, you do. If you want to write a letter confessing your desire to elope to a land where nobody cares about skirt length or how many bread rolls you take at supper, you're free to do so. No one will interrupt to tell you you're wasting your time or suggest something more productive. The hours slip away. You lose track of time until the light slants golden and the shadows lengthen, and you know someone will soon call your name, dragging you back to reality. With reluctance, you put away your brushes, cap your inkwell, and fold your scraps of poetry into the bottom of a tea tin where only you will ever look. As you descend the attic stairs, you carry a little piece of peace with you, tucked away beside your secret ambitions. The world below is as complicated as ever, but you've been reminded that there is life beyond the day's duties, a wild, creative, gloriously imperfect life that waits for you each time you open the attic door. And sometimes that's enough to keep going, even when Paris seems impossibly far away. You declare yourself unwell and retreat to the sick room, emerging only for cake and the occasional dramatic sigh. Everyone suspects you're faking. Nobody says a word. The Victorian sick room, refuge of the overtaxed, the underappreciated, and the sneakily clever. There's an art to appearing just ill enough to avoid social duties, but not so ill that you end up subjected to the dubious charms of the family doctor. The rules are simple. Never cough too convincingly, always accept broth with a wan smile, and perfect the sigh that suggests you are bearing your suffering with tragic, saintly patience. Your sanctuary is a small, quiet room tucked at the end of a little-used corridor, furnished with a daybed, a gently flickering fire, and a comforting pile of well-thumbed novels hidden beneath the coverlet. The curtains are drawn just enough to filter the harsh daylight, casting the room in a forgiving twilight perfect for napping, reading, or plotting your next escape from familial obligations. The rest of the household walks a delicate line between concern and skepticism, sending up trays of weak tea and toast while quietly betting how long this bout of nerves will last. In truth, there is rarely anything wrong with you that a morning of peace and a steady supply of cake can't cure. The sick room is a convenient loophole in the Victorian code of endless endurance, a place where you are allowed to rest, dream, and let your mind wander without being asked to embroider cushions or smile politely at another round of tedious callers. You become the queen of the faint, the empress of the delicate constitution, and if you're lucky, the recipient of an extra helping of pudding brought up to tempt your appetite. There's a rhythm to sick room life. You listen for footsteps in the hall, timing your moans and rustling so as not to arouse suspicion. When company is forced upon you, usually mother or a well-meaning sibling, you summon a weak smile and respond to every question with vague poetry. "Oh, I just need a little time and quiet. It's nothing, really." You allow your visitor to fuss over your pillows and brush your hair, then encourage their prompt departure with assurances that you need just a little rest. What they don't see is the secret life that blossoms as soon as the door clicks shut. You slip out your favourite novel, tucked just beneath the mattress, and devour 3 chapters in delicious solitude. If the mood strikes, you write a letter to a friend in another county, describing your suffering in highly dramatic terms and including detailed instructions for future sympathy cakes. Sometimes you use your privacy to try on wild hats, experiment with scandalous lipstick, or, on particularly daring days, practice your most dramatic feint for future emergencies. Of course, the sick room strategy works best when deployed sparingly. Overdo it, and you risk being banished to a true rest cure. No books, no visitors, only boiled chicken and despair. The key is subtlety. A touch of colour to the cheeks when someone comes to check, a tray of untouched food sent down as evidence of your fragile appetite, and just enough melancholy in your sighs to remind everyone of your delicate soul. The rest of the house, meanwhile, carries on. Meals are eaten, gossip exchanged, and arguments waged over who gets the best seat at dinner. You listen from your sanctuary, comforted by distance and the knowledge that, for a little while, you're exempt from the exhausting spectacle of family life. The world spins on without your active participation, and for once, you don't mind. When at last you're ready to rejoin the fray, you emerge pale but triumphant, your hair artfully tousled, your demeanour serene. "So brave," someone whispers. "She bears up so well." You accept the compliments and the slice of welcome-back cake, suppressing a smile. For in the end, the sick room is not just a place of illness, it's a place of power. A reminder that sometimes the only way to survive Victorian life is to claim a little space, a little quiet, and all the cake you can carry. When the house feels too small, you sneak out to the garden shed, a haven for secret cigarettes, dangerous daydreams, and hiding from both society and your mother-in-law. The garden shed isn't much to look at from the outside, a listing little structure, eternally half swallowed by ivy and surrounded by the ghosts of last season's failed tomato plants. But for those in the know, it's a palace of possibility. Here, the muddy boots and empty flower pots act as silent sentries, turning away nosy aunts and the ever-present threat of unexpected callers. The air is thick with the scent of earth, old paint, and a dash of contraband pipe smoke. In the garden shed, you can finally drop your guard, let down your hair, and at least for half an hour forget you're meant to be respectable. Getting here requires timing and stealth. You watch the house from behind a curtain, waiting for the lull that follows afternoon tea, then make your move down the back steps past the kitchen window, ducking under the suspicious gaze of the cook and across the dew-damp grass. The thrill of escape prickles up your spine. The garden may belong to the household, but the shed is all yours. Inside, the world is transformed. The clutter is oddly comforting. Stacks of old gardening manuals, a chipped mug that doubles as an ashtray, and a row of mysterious jars containing things best left unexamined. There's a rickety bench, its cushion patched and faded, where you sink gratefully and pull your knees up to your chin. For a few precious moments, nobody expects anything from you. Not a witty remark, not a well-timed feint, not even a tolerable rendition of Greensleeves on the pianoforte. This is where confessions happen. You exhale, watching your breath curl in the dusty sunlight. Sometimes a friend or sister joins you, someone who needs to complain about corsets, or mourn a love letter accidentally dropped in the pond, or just sit in companionable silence. In the garden shed, every secret is safe, every confidence sacred. You might even dare to try a puff of a forbidden cigarette, giggling at the illicit thrill and coughing dramatically on the first inhale. If anyone asks, you blame the pollen. Daydreams thrive in this untamed haven. You let your thoughts wander as far as they please, picturing yourself as a famous botanist in a tropical jungle, or the heroine of a swashbuckling romance, sword in hand, corset discarded somewhere along the equator. Sometimes you scribble plans for escaping to Paris or Brighton, or just jot wild, unpublishable poems about the tyranny of starch and social calls. No one here cares if your hair is out of place, your skirt is grass-stained, or your opinions are unsuitably modern. It isn't all fantasy, of course. Practical conspiracies take root in the garden shed too. You and your accomplices hatch plans for midnight feasts, emergency wardrobe repairs, or countermeasures for surviving the next family reunion. Once you manage to rescue the cat, dye 3 ribbons, and avoid your mother-in-law for a full afternoon, all without leaving your little kingdom. Eventually the spell must break. The sun begins to set, or a distant bell rings, calling you back to the world of manners and expectation. You stand, brushing the dust from your skirt, feeling stronger, calmer, and just a little bit wild. Whatever the house demands next, a well-placed smile, an endless evening of polite conversation, you're ready. You've had your breath of freedom, your secret cigarette, your stolen dreams. As you slip back toward the house, the shed stands behind you, watchful and welcoming, a reminder that, even in the most proper of worlds, there's always space for a little rebellion. All it takes is a garden path, a creaky old door, and the courage to breathe outdoors. As dusk falls, you retreat to your locked bedchamber, armed with a journal, a stack of forbidden books, and enough pillows to barricade yourself against reality. This is your moment, the highlight of a day spent enduring other people's opinions, unexpected callers, and the relentless ticking of the grandfather clock. As the last of the golden sunlight slips behind the heavy velvet curtains, you turn the key in the lock and finally exhale. The world outside your door can wait. Inside, it's just you, a pool of lamplit shadows, and the intoxicating freedom of solitude. Your bedchamber is equal parts fortress and sanctuary. The outside may look perfectly ordinary, a canopy bed, a matching set of washstand and wardrobe, a dressing table still cluttered with the detritus of a day spent being presentable. But within these four walls, you become the mistress of your own little kingdom. You pile the pillows high, building a rampart between yourself and the world's demands. There are snacks hidden in the bedside drawer, because who honestly survives on Victorian supper portions, a favourite shawl thrown around your shoulders, and a flickering candle on the nightstand that feels more comforting than any number of polite goodnights. And then the real retreat begins. First comes the journal, your confessional, your historian, your only reliable ally in a world that rewards silence and punishes dissent. Here you scribble your daily grievances, secret crushes, and thoughts too sharp or ridiculous to say aloud. You invent new endings for tedious family dramas and plot elaborate escapes, usually involving elopement, the Trans-Siberian Railway, and 3 trunks of hats. Your handwriting gets messier and more honest as the night deepens. Next, the books, the ones you're supposed to read, sermons, etiquette manuals, dry histories, languish untouched in a visible stack. But you know where the real treasures are hidden. Inside the pillowcase, beneath a false bottom in your trunk, sometimes even behind a loose floorboard. Tonight's selection is particularly daring. A Gothic romance, a French novel not fit for ladies, or perhaps a volume of poetry so tragic you need a second handkerchief just to get through it. You read hungrily, devouring forbidden words by lamplight, every turn of the page a small act of defiance. The quiet is never quite complete. Downstairs, the house is settling, pipes creak, distant voices murmur, and somewhere a clock strikes the hour with dramatic self-importance. You wrap yourself tighter in your shawl, relishing the cocoon you've built. Occasionally, footsteps pause outside your door. You freeze, books hidden, expression bland as milk. A knock, a call of, "Are you all right in there?" And you reply, voice smooth and sleepy, "Just going to bed. Thank you." Satisfied, they move on, never suspecting the literary rebellion underway just beyond reach. In this nightly retreat, you allow yourself to be exactly who you are, bold, curious, exhausted, and alive. You read until your eyes blur, write until your hand cramps, dream until reality dissolves into the comforting haze of fiction. The bed becomes a raft, the pillows your shield, the book your passage out of the ordinary. Sometimes you even imagine another soul hidden behind a locked door somewhere else, reading and dreaming along with you, a silent sisterhood of rebels and survivors. Eventually sleep will claim you, your journal slipping from your hand, the lamp burning low. But tonight, you go to bed on your own terms, having carved out a little pocket of freedom in a world built on rules and watchful eyes. As you drift off, the house around you fades away, and you sail quietly into dreams, safe, unbothered, and entirely yourself. With sunrise comes the end of secrecy. You smooth your dress, rehearse your smile, and open the door, ready to face another day of visible invisibility in a world built on hiding. Morning light seeps through the gaps in your curtains, prodding you awake long before you're truly ready. For a few precious moments you linger in the safe warmth of tangled sheets and dreams still echoing from the night before, adventures that were yours alone, confided only to your journal or the half-read novel you clutched as sleep claimed you. But the world waits, and with it, all the performances and routines you spent yesterday privately evading. There's a moment of stillness as you prepare yourself for the transformation ahead. Gone is the fortress of pillows and the security of a locked door. In its place, the carefully constructed facade of composure and grace you've spent a lifetime perfecting. You sit up, smoothing the wrinkles in your nightdress as though erasing evidence of the night's rebellions. A deep breath, a stretch, and you rise, already anticipating the day's first test, presenting yourself to the house, and by extension, to the world. The rituals begin anew. You wash your face in water that's never quite as warm as you'd like, watching the pale reflection in the looking glass transform by degrees. There's an art to the arrangement of hair, the selection of the day's appropriate dress, and the discreet application of scent, just enough to reassure the world that nothing is amiss. Nothing ever is. You rehearse your smile, practicing in the mirror until it feels almost natural, smoothing away traces of fatigue or defiance. Today, like every day, you don your chosen armor. The layers of fabric and lace become a kind of disguise, shielding you as you navigate the currents of household life. Each button fastened and each ribbon tied is an affirmation. You are prepared, you are polished, you are invisible in precisely the way society expects, not so much seen as displayed, an object among objects, your true self tucked away behind practiced expressions and carefully modulated responses. But you know you are more than you appear. Beneath the crisp linen and polite conversation, the real you lingers, quietly alert. You tuck last night's journal deeper into its hiding place, a secret talisman to carry you through the day. In your mind, you replay the stories and ideas born in the privacy of your bedchamber, a private archive of rebellion, humour, and hope. The house, too, is waking. The familiar creaks and footsteps, the murmur of servants, the faint rattle of dishes from the kitchen, all reminders that your solitude is officially over. You slip on your shoes, force your shoulders back, and paste the required smile on your face. When you finally open your door, you're stepping into a world of watchers, family, guests, even the house itself, always ready to assess, to judge, to remind you of your place. Still, there's a peculiar kind of pride in the performance. You've mastered the choreography, the modest greeting, the gentle laugh at jokes you've heard 100 times, the artful dodge of uncomfortable questions. You move through breakfast, through the first obligations of the day, with the grace of someone who knows the true value of her own invisibility. And yet, every so often, you catch the eye of a sister or friend, a fellow survivor of the night. There's a flash of recognition, a subtle smile, a conspiratorial glance, a silent promise that the secret world you share has not been lost to the dawn. The stories you wrote, the dreams you dreamed, the courage you summoned in the dark, they are still yours, carried within, ready to bloom again when the world turns away. Because even as you surrender to the daylight, to the expectations and performances, you know this. Each dawn may demand your compliance, but it cannot erase your midnight truths. And so you walk out head high into the bright and watchful day, knowing that when evening falls the door will close and you will find yourself again. Bathing in a Victorian home is less an act of cleanliness and more a covert operation. Armed with a portable tub and a prayer that no one barges in, you orchestrate a one-woman spa day between scheduled household panics, hoping the steam masks both your sins and the scent of last week's hair oil. There's nothing straightforward about getting clean when your entire home is a labyrinth of eyes, interruptions and unspoken rules. Privacy, much like hot water, is rationed and precious, and a bath is not a daily entitlement, but an event to be plotted with the cunning of a master thief. You wait for the perfect moment, a lull between breakfast and the arrival of the next nosy aunt, or just as the house plunges into chaos over a missing silver spoon. Timing is everything. Too early and you risk the gardener's unexpected knock at the window. Too late and you're likely to be caught mid-scrub by the cook looking for her pie weights. The portable tin tub is hauled up from the kitchen, dented and a little suspicious, filled with hot water bucket by a surly maid who mutters darkly about modern decadence. Each slosh of water is a small act of rebellion against the tyranny of dry sponging and cologne. Once alone, you bolt the door and draw the curtains tight, your only defence against the wandering eyes and unannounced visitors who treat a closed door as a personal challenge. Now the ritual begins. You test the water, cautious of the scalding edges and the icy abyss lurking just beneath. The scent of lavender soap mingles with the faint tang of last week's washing soda. Your reflection in the clouded mirror is both victorious and anxious, braced for battle. Bathing here is not a time for luxurious contemplation. It's a race against the clock, a blend of tactical efficiency and desperate self-care. You scrub with a fervour born of necessity, trying not to splash water on the rug or let your mind wander to horror stories of neighbours catching colds from overbathing. Shampooing is a perilous affair, and you thank your stars if you manage to rinse your hair before the bath water turns lukewarm and the next crisis erupts just beyond the door. Somewhere in the background, the faint sounds of life in the house filter through. Laughter, complaints, the relentless ticking of a clock reminding you that time is almost up. Sometimes you allow yourself the small luxury of a few extra minutes, sinking beneath the water, eyes closed, letting the warmth soothe muscles tensed from hours of sitting straight and smiling pleasantly. For these moments, you're invisible, untouchable, a goddess in exile worshipping at the altar of self-preservation. There are no judgments here, only steam and the quiet satisfaction of being cleaner than anyone expects. But the spell is fragile. At any second, someone may rattle the doorknob, call your name, or, worst of all, offer unsolicited advice about protecting your constitution. You leap from the tub, clutching your towel, and perform a hasty triage. Drying, dressing, hiding all evidence of your aquatic adventure. Wet towels are hung discreetly by the fire, the tub is hustled away, and a well-practiced air of nonchalance is applied alongside your rosewater. Returning to the world, you're a little lighter, a little fresher, and infinitely more prepared to face whatever the household throws at you next, whether it's an impromptu tea, an accidental proposal, or yet another lecture about the perils of excess hygiene. Your skin tingles with the rare thrill of victory. Because in this house of secrets, a successful bath is more than cleanliness. It's an act of rebellion, a private ritual, a whispered triumph beneath the surface of respectability. And tomorrow, when the day begins anew, only you will know the truth behind your immaculate appearance, that beneath the starch and silk you carry the memory of steam and sanctuary, and the confidence that comes from having, however briefly, washed the day away. Tucked away behind heavy curtains, the morning room is both sanctuary and spectacle. Here you perfect your tearful gaze for the neighbours, debate the etiquette of crying louder than your aunt, and wonder if the whole process is just an elaborate excuse to wear black and avoid dinner guests for a month. Victorian mourning is not for the faint of heart, nor the easily bored. The minute a relative shuffles off this mortal coil, the entire household is plunged into an elaborate production of grief. The mourning chamber becomes the heart of this theatre, a room swathed in black crape and shadow, smelling faintly of lilies and the even fainter aroma of someone's emergency brandy flask hidden behind the prayer books. Heavy velvet curtains blot out the daylight, muffling the world beyond, and the furniture, normally polished to a blinding sheen, is now dutifully draped in funereal cloth. No bright colours allowed, not even a rogue sprig of lavender on the mantel. You slip inside, already dressed in regulation black, skirts rustling with every solemn step. The ritual begins. You compose your features, adjust your veil, and arrange yourself on a fainting couch with just enough melodrama to impress any unexpected visitors. In the mourning chamber, performance is everything. Too little emotion and you're cold-hearted. Too much and you risk upstaging the widow. You study yourself in the mirror, perfecting a look that conveys both bottomless sorrow and an unspoken plea to be left alone with a novel. Of course, you're rarely alone for long. The chamber is a magnet for relatives, both genuine and otherwise, each eager to claim a prime seat in the theatre of woe. There are strict rules about who may sit nearest the grieving party, how long one must sigh before being offered a handkerchief, and whether it's more proper to dab at your eyes or simply let the tears roll for dramatic effect. Your aunt, who's been through 3 mourning periods and counting, sets the bar high with her tragic sniffles and well-timed collapses. But mourning, for all its surface solemnity, is also an unparalleled opportunity for gossip. Nothing brings out hidden truths like the shadow of death, and the chamber is a hive of whispered speculation. Was cousin Beatrice really so broken up? Or is she already planning her next wardrobe refresh? Did the deceased actually leave everything to the cat? What exactly was the cause of death? And does it have anything to do with last month's suspiciously undercooked pudding? Every condolence visit doubles as a fact-finding mission, with mourners dropping hints and extracting information under the cover of shared sorrow. Then there's the matter of attire. Black becomes both armour and costume, a sartorial shield that wards off prying questions and unwelcome invitations. You become intimately acquainted with the intricacies of bombazine, crepe and jet beads. There's endless debate about the correct level of ornamentation. A plain black dress says you're appropriately heartbroken, but a well-placed cameo brooch hints at hope for future romance. Deep down, everyone knows that a well-chosen mourning outfit is a ticket to both sympathy and a blessed respite from social duties. For many, the mourning chamber is also a strange haven, a place to hide from the relentless pace of Victorian life. Here, you can decline invitations, ignore correspondence, and enjoy the rare luxury of quiet without explanation. Meals are brought on trays, callers are told you're not receiving, and any awkward topic can be deflected with a soft sigh and a well-timed, "It's all so much, isn't it?" Yet, even in grief, life persists. There are furtive giggles when someone's crepe gets caught on a doorknob, or when a distant cousin is discovered napping behind the curtains with a half-eaten tart. The rules of mourning are many, but so are the loopholes, and you learn to navigate them with a mixture of dignity and quiet rebellion. Eventually the days of official sorrow draw to a close. The curtains are drawn back, colours return, and the world resumes its clamour. You fold away the black dress, a little relieved, a little wiser, and if you're honest, still grateful for that one glorious month where grief gave you the right to hide, to gossip, and to quietly be yourself behind a very fashionable veil. Every secret room comes equipped with one essential, the hidden laudanum stash. In this cramped cupboard, you contemplate whether your latest female complaint warrants a dose, or if you're simply allergic to relatives. The answer, as always, is yes. Victorian medicine is, to put it gently, a carnival of the questionable and the quackish. For every ailment, real or imagined, there is a bottle, powder or pill, usually administered with grand certainty and only slightly less drama than the average séance. But at the heart of every truly functional household is the laudanum drawer, a battered wooden box or velvet-lined drawer filled with little brown bottles, each promising soothing relief for the endless parade of headaches, nerves, and mysterious female maladies. The family doctor claims to have absolute faith in its effectiveness, which is generally code for "I haven't the faintest idea, but at least you'll stop complaining." You open the drawer and study its contents: laudanum tincture, patent cough elixirs, and an unmarked vial that smells alarmingly of turpentine and hope. The labels are faded, the cork slightly sticky, and somewhere beneath it all lies a folded leaflet warning that excessive use may result in most unfortunate consequences. You smooth the leaflet flat, consider your options, and pour yourself the daintiest, most decorous dose, just enough to quiet your nerves, never enough to explain why you can suddenly tolerate family gatherings without visible distress. Laudanum, the Victorian cure-all, is nothing if not versatile. 1 dose soothes a headache, 2 banish a tedious afternoon, and 3 render you serenely indifferent to everything from lace-trimmed pillowcases to Uncle Arthur's long-winded opinions on empire. It is, in short, a mother's little helper, a lady's silent ally, and the only thing standing between you and a public display of nerves. The trick, of course, is not to overdo it. Too little, and you're still annoyed. Too much, and you might find yourself enthusiastically discussing poetry with the fireplace or dreaming you've eloped with the butler. Medicine in this era is a curious mixture of ritual, superstition, and the blind leading the blind. For every legitimate dose there are 10 that are purely preventative, taken in case of incipient hysteria, nerves of the season, or a cousin's sudden engagement to someone you'd planned to mock for at least another year. The laudanum drawer is where women's real medical expertise resides, not in grand diagnoses, but in the accumulated wisdom of knowing exactly when to say, "I think I need a little something for my nerves." Of course, discretion is key. The family must never suspect that your sudden patience is pharmaceutical rather than spiritual. Bottles are hidden among sewing kits, wrapped in embroidery and disguised as hair tonics or scented water. You and your sisters have devised a whole lexicon of code phrases: "I believe I'll rest in the pink bedroom," or "Is it time for Mother's special cordial?" That signal it's time for a little medicinal escape. You're not alone in your subterfuge. Even the most stolid matron or suspiciously energetic aunt has been known to reach for the laudanum drawer after a particularly taxing week. Some households keep a decoy bottle of raspberry vinegar in case of unexpected visitors. Others trust the housekeeper to mind the real supply, knowing full well she's been dosing the afternoon tea since the year before last. Sometimes you reflect on the absurdity of it all, that an entire culture, obsessed with self-control and composure, survives on tiny doses of something that blurs the sharp edges and hushes the relentless inner monologue. Yet, for all its risks and whispered warnings, the laudanum drawer remains a last quiet refuge, a little liquid courage for a world that asks women to do so much and forgive even more. So you tuck the bottle back in its velvet nest, straighten your skirts, and step out to face the next calamity, calm, composed, and just a touch floaty. After all, in a house built on secrets, sometimes the best medicine is simply knowing where to find the drawer. Sometimes the only souls who truly understand are the furry ones. You sneak away to the pet parlour, really just a glorified closet, where cats judge you silently, dogs offer honest companionship, and you can safely confess that yes, the canary does sing better than most dinner guests. The pet parlour is one of those peculiar Victorian inventions, a space that's meant to say, "We're refined animal lovers, but really acts as a lifeboat for anyone needing a break from the rigid rules of household life. The door is rarely locked, the air always a little warmer than the rest of the house, thanks to the dog's combined efforts, and the walls lined with baskets, blankets, and the odd well-chewed slipper. It's the only room in the house where you can let your hair down without Aunt Agatha noticing, and where the only expectation is to give the tabby a respectful berth and the spaniel a good scratch behind the ears. You slip inside, closing the door just enough to muffle the commotion outside. The largest dog, a dignified old hound named Wellington, raises his head in acknowledgement, then resumes snoring, tail thumping against the floor. The cats, meanwhile, occupy the highest available surfaces, overseeing their domain with half-lidded disdain. You find your favourite seat, the one least likely to be claimed by an ambitious kitten, and settle in for a much-needed respite. Here, conversation is refreshingly honest. The pets make no pretense of listening to household gossip, let alone spreading it. You can confess that you loathe embroidery, that you've hidden the last slice of plum cake in your desk, or that you sometimes wish you could run away and join a circus. No judgment, only soft purrs and the gentle reassurance of a cold nose on your hand. The canary in its cage trills an enthusiastic greeting, mercifully drowning out the distant echo of someone practicing scales on the pianoforte. Animals have a way of drawing out your real self. You tell secrets to the cat that you'd never whisper to a sister, mostly because you know the cat has heard it all before and couldn't care less. You read poetry to the dog, who looks up at you with such earnestness that you start to believe your words are worthy of applause. Even the family's surly tortoise, out for his weekly stroll, seems to nod along in agreement as you vent your latest frustration about supper seating charts or the never-ending tyranny of petticoats. The pet parlour is also a haven for alliances. If you need to send a secret message or retrieve a lost handkerchief, there's no better courier than a loyal spaniel or an exceptionally determined ferret. Sisters meet here to coordinate plans for pantry raids. Younger brothers come to sulk after being scolded, and the cook occasionally pops in to deliver a sausage to her favourite four-legged confidant. All hierarchies collapse in this cosy chaos. Everyone is equal in the eyes of the parlour's furry judges. Sometimes you stay just for the sake of staying. The gentle sound of purring, the rhythmic ticking of the old clock, the soft sigh of a dog settling in for another nap, these small comforts stitch your nerves back together. You let yourself unwind, untangle the day's knots, and recharge before braving the world outside, where expectations are many and safe harbours so few. Inevitably, the time comes to return to reality. You smooth your skirts, brush a few errant hairs from your sleeve, and accept a sympathetic glance from Wellington, who knows better than anyone what it means to seek a little peace. As you leave, you carry with you the lingering comfort of the parlour's quiet acceptance, a reminder that, sometimes, survival depends on knowing where to find the softest cushion, the warmest fur, and a listening ear that never repeats what it hears. Because in a house full of secrets, the pet parlour is the only place where being yourself is never a scandal, and as everyone knows, that's the finest art of avoidance there is. So, as you finally step out of your secret room and slide back into the bright, bewildering world of Victorian respectability, take a deep breath, without the smell of mothballs and laudanum for once. Tonight, you've navigated hidden corridors, whispered behind velvet drapes, and survived a day of impossible fashion, questionable medical advice, and enough etiquette to break a lesser mortal. You've evaded nosy uncles, outwitted household spies, and claimed your own tiny patch of privacy in a world built on secrets and silence. And through it all, you did what Victorian women always did. You endured, adapted, and occasionally stole biscuits from the pantry just to prove you could. Let's not forget, for all the suffering and stifling rules, there was an unbreakable resilience in every woman who carved out a secret space, no matter how small, dusty, or filled with nervous cats. These hidden rooms were sanctuaries, workshops, confessionals, and strongholds of stubborn hope. They were proof that even when the world pressed in from all sides, people could find a way to laugh, love, and sometimes plot a dramatic exit through the garden shed. So tonight, as you tuck yourself into a clean bed, one without locks, servants, or mysterious medicine bottles, maybe take a moment to be grateful for the privacy, the comfort, and the deliciously modern freedom to read any book you like, eat breakfast whenever you want, and ignore the doorbell with zero consequences. Because history is full of struggle and absurdity, but it's also a reminder. People are stubborn, resourceful, and more than a little ridiculous. May your dreams be free of corsets, your secrets safe, and your rest as peaceful as a Sunday morning with no callers. Good night.